Okay, so here's a basic riveting demonstration. So what I have here is I have two pieces of brass, each with a little hole in it. Now in this case, I don't really care where the hole is. I'm just using it as a practice piece, or a demo piece. One thing to remember when you're riveting is that the wire and the hole must be very tightly fitting, very little play. If there's any play in this, what will happen is the wire will bend inside the rivet and it won't turn freely. The other thing to be aware of, so I've used a 0.8 millimeter drill bit in both of these holes, and this is a piece of 0.8 copper wire. I'm using copper and brass because it's just a demo, plus the color difference will show you that you'll see it better. When I cut wire with side cutters, I don't know if I can show it to you, but there's a slight angle on it, and that's the flat side. If I cut it with the other side, so this angled side inside, you will clearly have an angled cut right there on both sides. That angle will cause the rivet to not rivet properly or evenly. So what I like to do when I'm riveting is I like to make sure that I flatten the end of the wire that I'm going to rivet. So I'm going to just take this and I'm just going to flatten it with the Moore's disc, and I'm just going to check and make sure that it's nice and square, not on an angle or anything like that. Then I'm going to cut more wire than I need. I'm going to slide it through. Oh, one thing, remember, whenever we're drilling, there'll be a little bit of a burr. A good idea to remove that burr because it will keep the rivet off the surface. Again, you're going to use real material for this, not just pieces of scrap, but it's fine for a demo and fine for practicing. So now with the flattened side, which is this side here, down, I'm going to push it through one of the wires or sheets. And this could be multiple sheets, doesn't really matter. I'm just using two here. And so you can see I'm pushing it through. This is the side that I've flattened, so I'm going to put that side facing down. I do not want these pieces of material flush. I want a little bit of space so that the rivet sticks out a little bit on both sides. You can see how that sticks out. Now the other side, I'm going to cut it, leaving about 0.5 millimeter to 3/4 millimeter sticking up. And right now I've just pushed it all the way to one side because I also want to flatten that side as well. Just like that. And you don't have to do this, but it is better. And then I'm going to push it so that the rivet is half on either side. I'm just going to move my light so that you can maybe see that better. Of course. So you can see that that rivet is half and half right there. I'm going to hold it onto here, keeping that rivet half up. With the round part of the hammer, the ball part, ball peen is what it is, I'm just going to lightly tap that end all the way around, and that's called a ball peen, a ball rivet or a raised rivet. And I don't know how easy it is to see that, but it's actually starting to flare. So I'm going to lower my camera, maybe you can see it a bit better here. So it's starting to flare nicely. Go all the way around. Not hitting it hard. You can see how much bigger that side is than this side. And then now I can hold it down flush. and I can rivet that over the rest of the way. And you can see how it's flattened out significantly. Now I could clean that up with a rubber wheel or whatever. The other thing I can do is I can use, if I want to clean it up a bit quicker. Now these hammers are polished on the ends, and that gives you a better finish on your rivet. But I'm just going to hold it flat, and I'm going to use the flat side of the hammer now and hammer it on both sides, just like that. So you can see how much wider that end is on both sides. So this is held, it spins because it's only held in one location, but that will not come apart. If I wanted it not to spin, I'd have to put a second rivet in it somewhere over here where the two pieces overlap again. So that's a basic raised rivet, and it's called a raised rivet because I can feel the top is raised. Now I'm going to switch my flex shaft around here, and I'm going to drill another hole, again with the same 0.8 millimeter drill bit, and I'm going to do what's called a flush rivet. And what this is it's flush with the surface. Now this is really makes a difference. I'm just going to drill this hole off camera here. Makes a difference for how you polish. So a raised rivet you might use on surfaces that you're not going to polish. A flush rivet is for surfaces that you might be doing more work to afterwards, or you still have to sand, which is critical because with a flush rivet you do have to do some sanding on the surface to get it flush. Otherwise you're going to ruin the surface of the area around it. Sorry, I'm just switching bits here. And just going to grab my wire, make sure that it slides through. My holes are lined up here. So the drill bit that I have isn't quite perfect for the size of my wire, so I'm just opening it up just a smidgen here. And it's quite tight. Just want to make sure that this is going to fit through here. The problem with copper as rivets at all is that it tends to rivet really well because it's so soft, but it's so soft that the bar inside also bends. So if it's not a really tight fit with your wire, then you're going to have lots of problems. Okay, so that will go through there. You can see it just sticking through the other side. But in this case, I'm not going to put the rivet in, the wire in yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a cone burr or a ball burr in my flex shaft. So this is a cone burr. It's got a conical shape to it. And this is a ball burr, round on the end. I'll use the ball burr because it's the more common burr that people have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my ball burr and I'm just going to create a little space for the rivet head to sit into. Just like that. So you can see how the hole is bigger on both sides and it gets smaller in the middle. Now when I sand off this wire, which I will do, I'm just going to sand the end of it here so it's nice and flat. I'm going to do basically the same thing. I'm going to put it through through there like that. Basically the same amount of material sticking out. Going to cut off this side with a little bit of extra room because I'm going to sand that flat. So now I have the same thing as before, a little bit sticking out both sides. The difference is this time when I go to rivet it, it's going to have space to fill. So I'm going to, again, keeping it up off the surface just a little bit, I'm going to rivet this side. And then I'm going to flip it over, make sure it's tight. Rivet that side. Flatten it. Both sides. Now I'm going to do this with my Moore's disc instead of traditional sandpaper. But again, it looks kind of similar. It's a little flatter than the other one. But when I use my Moore's disc in this case, and I take that surface down, so you can see how that's perfectly flat now. Do the same thing on the other side. Perfectly flat. So this is a flush rivet. No, it's nice and smooth there. I could now polish that, sand that, and that is also not going to come through because of that little bevel. So I cannot pull that apart. And now that I have two rivets in this piece, it won't turn either. So that's basically how riveting works. I hope this was useful.